Hello, and welcome to the Empath Heart Healing YouTube channel. My name is Eileen, and I am an intuitive spiritual therapist and an empath. This channel is designed to help empaths feel seen, heard, and understood. Thank you for being with us. And today's discussion will include just discussing how do we overcome generational and ancestral obstacles, as well as changing the narrative so that we can match and align our highest good and accomplish our soul work. Joining me today is Tonia Ferguson, President and founder of Be Real Blessed LLC. Tonia is a mental health professional who uses her consulting platform to help individuals and organizations expand leadership development in the area of mental health by focusing on psychoeducation and leadership training that increases productivity while decreasing staff burnout and turnover. She is the Director of Programs and Director of Curriculum Development for Women Wonder Writers, or WWW, a nonprofit organization based in the Riverside area that focuses on social emotional learning. As the literary art expert for WWW, she hosts writing workshops for wellness. She is an adjunct professor at the community level, community college level, and university level. And she's passionate about education, professional mentoring, criminal justice reform, and advocacy for victims of abuse and neglect. In her work, there is a focus on healing individuals and families impacted by moderate to severe mental illness. Thank you, Tonia, for being here. It's a blessing.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I know it's a lot. I do a lot. So yeah, and I like all my flowers. I need them.
So, before I ask you any questions, I have been contemplating, because this past week, Britney Spears had a court appearance. I don't know if it was actually this week, but I know this past week it was publicized, and she was advocating for herself to be released from this long-term conservatorship that she's been a part of. And I didn't really watch a lot of it because I was too busy. I didn't get to, but the little snippets that I guess I was supposed to see because they showed up in the field, or they were on my feed, or somebody mentioned them. It was really interesting and very compelling for me as a mental health professional to see someone who's been diagnosed with pretty severe mental health condition, but feels very strongly that her rights have been violated. And it made me very sad and gave me a lot of compassion for her and empathy for her. And I don't know what the outcome was because I didn't watch the whole thing, and I'm guessing it's probably ongoing. But I certainly wish Britney Spears well, and any other human that has ever been diagnosed with a psychiatric label and feels that they have been mistreated or taken advantage of or abused or neglected in any way. On behalf of the mental health community, I want to offer you an apology. And I also want to acknowledge you as not only, a human being, but as a soul. And you are not limited by any psychiatric label or condition or treatment of anybody in the medical field or psychiatric field, mental health field. And I just honor you, all of you, and I understand that the journey of mental health is not easy, and it takes great courage to even seek help. And I'm just deeply moved by those of you that have the courage to come forward and share your stories, and continue to advocate for yourself. And I certainly hope that those of us that are in the mental health field are listening and monitoring ourselves and recognizing that this is a gift and an opportunity to help people heal and navigate with effective coping skills. And I certainly hope that we take that seriously and remember the power differential between clients and mental health professionals and what we are required to do. In terms of creating a safe container for our patients and our clients to share their stories and ultimately to get the help and not be taken advantage of a system, that especially in the entertainment field, that takes advantage sometimes of people because it's all about the money. And that's not what we are here to be. And so I wanted to just say that. Sorry for taking up your time, but it was so relevant. And I feel it's important for us to advocate for patients and clients and all people, all beings, that are committed towards their own health and wellness. So welcome, Tonia. And I wanted to ask you, what is your experience, training, background that inspired you to want to become a therapist?
So many things. I think my original plan about 9 years ago was to become a lawyer. And so I was, in a place in my life where I had lost my job and I needed to focus on getting an education, not be there anymore. And so I went to school and I got an undergrad in criminal justice. I ended up getting an internship at the Superior Court of California and got hired by them eventually to be a judicial secretary. And that was perfect for me at the time because I felt like it aligned with what my purpose was to go on to law school. And I had the opportunity to really get mentors in my life, which has been life-changing for me. Mentors that had law degrees, that were in the field, doing criminal justice, doing family law and all these things. And I was on the lookout pretty much for law school. And so I had a judge that I was particularly close to who also had a master's degree in clinical psychology. And I remember I was sitting in his chambers one day talking about a few law schools. And he said, Tonia, have you ever thought about being a therapist? And I was like, a therapist? No. And he said, Tonia, I've known you for some time. What I know about you is that you have a purpose to help people. And maybe you can help people before they get into trouble with the law. Maybe you can help people before they get into trouble in their relationships. And that might be a path that you might explore. Why don't you take some time, look into this, see if you like it. And it was absolutely the right thing for me. It was absolutely the path that I needed to be on. And so here we are. Before then, I worked at a correctional facility. I always wanted to work with people that were incarcerated because my family, the men in my life, had struggles. They had struggles with substance abuse. They had struggles in their life with, being affiliated with gangs and criminal activity. And I felt like, my father passed away when I was 10 years old. And something that always stuck with me is that I couldn't save him, even though that wasn't my responsibility. And obviously it took a lot of healing through therapy to come out of that idea, because that was not my responsibility. But that is the truth. That is a truth in my life that has led me down this path as well. That I want to help people that are impacted by those things that impacted me. And what a better advocate for those people and for their families than me, somebody who's lived through these things and come to see what the other side looks like too. And it took a lot of hard work.
Yeah, beautiful. And it's interesting how the universe, the divine, life brought someone into your life who could see something inside of you that you didn't necessarily see at the time. And knowing you, it's so hard to imagine you not being a therapist, a clinician and an advocate. What do you consider a high conscious therapist to be?
I think definitely somebody that has done the work. because the work is important. And when you do the work, when you start to dive into the ego, when you start to dive into all these things in your life that impact your decision making today, that impact the way you think, your belief system, your values, you learn to see things in a different perspective. So your worldview is expanded, and you gain spiritual connection to a higher power. And that looks different for everybody. You know, I don't particularly consider myself religious. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And as soon as I became an adult, I stepped away from that for different personal reasons. And for a long time, I felt like I don't want to have anything to do with that. You know, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And then I, grew up, I became an adult. I had troubles, got into grad school. We had to go to therapy in order to be a therapist. And I found this amazing therapist who was really like, not just a therapist or a healer, but like a spirit guide for me. And I also found that I was in this class or at this school that was faith-based. And it's so funny because I had researched the school I went to, Azusa Pacific University. I researched the school. I went to orientation. I had to go through an interview to even be accepted. And I'm sitting at the first day of class, and I look down at my booklet, and it says God first. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And that was the time that I realized that this was a Christian university. And I say that it is the Lord, because if I would have known that prior to, I wouldn't have signed up to go to Azusa Pacific University. That thing would have stopped me. But what was beautiful about it, even though it's faith-based in that sense, you don't have to be a Christian to go there. And going back to being a high conscious therapist, every class where we're talking about therapist things, right? Every class had an aspect of integrating your faith. And so with the help of school, with the help of being connected with a therapist who was that way as well, and so we aligned as well, I was able to go on this journey of healing, and understand what my faith was, understand what my values were. And again, now I'm a therapist, and that is important to me. And I had somebody to model that for me. So that's what being a high conscious therapist is to me.
So as you look at your work, what do you consider your spirit work, soul work, service work? What exactly, how would you even define that?
I think that's a really great question. And sometimes I get stuck on that because I do so many things. I work with people that are incarcerated. I'm an educator. I'm a therapist. I'm a business owner. I think what it all boils down to is this like mission statement that I have for myself, which is find a mentor, be a mentor. And I have that mission statement because mentors have changed my life. People have come into my life and mentored me and have shown me that there are other experiences in life that I could actually be a part of, that I could have a part of. And they've never required anything from me to mentor me. They've done it from the kindness of their heart. They've done it probably fulfilling their own purpose in life. And so I appreciate it, and I understand the responsibility that comes with it as well. So that's like the path that I'm on currently.
Okay. So earlier you talked about losing your father when you were 10, and you talked about some of the men in your family. I'm wondering what stories, narratives you've had to rewrite from a generational and ancestral perspective in order to align with, your current now disposition and service work.
I say that losing my father at 10, something really happened to me. Fathers for girls are the protection, and my dad particularly, he died of a heroin overdose. He had a serious drug problem. But something about my dad is he was the only person at the time for me that showered me with love and affection. despite his struggles personally, every time I seen him, he told me he loved me, kissed me, hugged me, all those things. And so and he was the only person in my life that did that. And so I lost that at 10 years old. And I lost something so integral that I needed, like for my development, growing into womanhood, growing into adulthood, becoming a mother myself, coming into romantic relationships in the future. And I didn't trust people, and when you don't trust people, you don't trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, how can you make good decisions in life? How can you trust those decisions that you need to make? So I think that's a big one. It was necessary for me to, and not only that, as I said before, because of these situations, these daddy issues, it led me to the type of people that I like to work with. And I recognized before I got into being a therapist that I needed to heal that stuff about me, so that I could go into those spaces correctly. Because you can't go into these spaces with people that you want to work with based on your previous experience, your traumas, if you're not healed, because it would be so ineffective. It would be detrimental to you as a person, and it would be detrimental to them because there would be no appropriate boundaries there. And I had to understand that it's not my responsibility to save these people. It's not my responsibility to save anybody that I work with or to even solve their problems. I'm not an advice giver. I'm here as a guide. I'm here as a mentor. And I'm here to share experiences. And that's all that I can do. And I'm sure you understand, like, from the perspective of being a clinician, those are really important boundaries that we have to have as clinicians in order to, like, survive ourselves, because mentally our jobs are very taxing on our spirit.
Yeah, and then like also bringing empaths into this. So a lot of clinicians and people in the quote unquote helping fields tend to be empaths, energy sensitive humans that take in, naturally absorb the energetic signature of the people and environment around them. And so boundaries, of course, we'll always be talking about boundaries because they're very important. And then recognizing how to have self-compassion while giving compassion to others. And sometimes that self-compassion is that boundary, or being able to even recognize sometimes you're not able to give or help a particular individual because they're on their own path and it's not aligned with yours. And so there's so many things for us to learn. I'm wondering, how would you define a mother wound?
Oh. I read this question when you sent the list over, and I think that one was the one that was like kind of took my breath away for a minute. Mother wound for me is, again, a traumatic experience from a relationship that you have with your mother. And you think about, my opinion is that our mothers are everything. They are the ones that give birth to us, and they're the ones that we have the highest expectation of nurturing from. And in my experience, me and my mother, we have come a long way in our relationship and done a lot of hard work to heal, but it has not always been the case that way. And I remember when I was kind of going through my process of healing and trying to do my hard work, I reflected on the fact that I'd been just angry at my mother for so long because I felt like she was incapable of being there for me emotionally. She just was. And, in that anger, I kind of never had compassion for her. And again, that's something I learned in therapy. Having somebody have compassion for me, I was able to change that perspective and look at my mom in a different way. And I think, I reflected on her relationships with my father, who had a serious drug problem, with my stepfather, who had some of the same struggles. She used so much of herself to tend to these men who had struggles that at the end of every day, she didn't have anything left for herself, let alone for me. And that is something generationally that was taught to her, because her mother was the same way. The other women in our family had the same types of relationships and were the same way. We were the tenders of the men, the tenders of the family, and our needs culturally even came last. And so understanding that perspective, understanding that mother wound, it helped me to heal from that. It helped me to reflect on how I was that way in the early raising of my children. And they say like something about them tables, honey, they always turn. And let me tell you what, they did turn, and I then had to have a conversation with my children about how I was ineffective, how I was incapable of providing emotional support for them, and when you have to have that hard conversation with yourself, for me, it was hard to look at my mom anymore, because it's like, no, these are not your mother's children. These are your children. And you can't do anything to change what you've already done. You can only be better. And holding myself accountable to only be better, I was able to look at my mother and see she is better. She is better because she knows better now, And so, yeah.
Beautiful. So what I'm hearing from you is that part of changing the narrative of self is it includes self-compassion, authenticity, being honest about, I guess you could say the weeds in the garden, and having the courage to pull them out, right? But also maintaining expectation and optimism about what the future could hold. So that's exciting, realizing that the narrative that we were born in, the stories that we were born into, don't necessarily dictate the future, and recognizing that we can actually change the patterns, right, and the cycles. And so that's what I'm hearing from you.
And knowing that is not easy. It is, that famous therapy term, it gets worse before it gets better. Like, it is so hard. It is so painful to do. But you can come through it. It just takes a lot of hard work and consistency and integrating the things, as a clinician, I talk to clients about the fact that, we're going to have conversations about coping skills, about, where I'm going to psychoeducate you, like all these things. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't believe them and if you don't put them to practice, and consistently. So.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about your work in the prison system and how that work has shaped your therapeutic style and, I guess, your overall worldview.
This is this is going to be a fun question. I'm going to just keep it real with you 100%.
Okay.
So, in the prison system has absolutely shaped my therapeutic style in the sense that I understand that I can keep it real all the time. And I understand that the way that I look and the way that I move as a therapist may not be what other people see a therapist as, Some days I go in business attire, as I would in other professional settings, Some days I go in, honey, in a t-shirt and some Jordans, And I found that when I go in a t-shirt and some Jordans, that's when we have some of the most amazing conversations. Because if you think about like the trauma that comes from some of the life experiences that these people have had that are incarcerated, they don't trust people that are dressed in professional attire. They've been taken into custody by them. They've had their children taken away by them. You know what I mean? And so I used to fight this feeling before that, this is therapist me, and this is, Tonia, and this is educator me, because again, like I wear so many hats and have different roles. And what's beautiful about the work that I do in the prison is we do social emotional learning curriculum, but we bring in art techniques about it. And, as you know, I'm a literary artist kind of person. And so I started to develop this art lesson called the alter ego. And it was really inspired by my own therapy work. But it was like a self-portrait thing. So what I started having them do is I would have them draw a picture of their face. And I would go through this alter ego lesson about half of this face is going to be who you are. And half of the face, I want you to create your alter ego. And I always start with myself, as the guide. And I say, so on this side, you have Miss Tonia, because that's how I'm referred to, and on this side, you have T. Ferg. And let's talk about what some of those characteristics from both of them are, So Miss Tanya is very professional. She's educated. She dresses really nice. She commands the room, She's very kind and compassionate and sweet. And honey, T-Ferg is the one that comes in the t-shirt. And T-Ferg, she cusses like a sailor sometimes, and she's just real hood, and she can be very aggressive and like all these things. And it's like, here's the thing about it. All of this, both of these parts like make up me. And I think before I started to really execute that lesson, I used to think like, I can only be this way here, and I can only be this way here. And I released that idea.
Yeah.
I just embrace who I am, because this is what got me here. All the ways that I used to be aggressive before that I'm not, that got me here too. It got me into these spaces to be able to go into a correctional facility. I'm not even 5 foot tall. People say you have like tall person energy, like your audience wouldn't know that, right? But like, it's hard to be a woman that's not even 5 foot tall and to go into a correctional facility of men who don't see a lot of women, and you have to control that space.
Yeah.
I mean, we control the space, because I need to be efficient and I need to do a good job. And I recognize now that any room I walk into, that's my goal. That's my goal, is to control the room, because I'm an empowered woman. And I spent so much of my life turning over my power to other people. And I don't do it anymore. So that's like really how my work experiences in those places have really changed who I am as a therapist, And I'm so grateful for those experiences, because I'm not afraid of things anymore.
Your what you were sharing reminded me of my early days as a therapist intern. And one of the very first groups I ran, a drug and alcohol group, all men, and all of these particular men were released through the Prop 36 program. And it was the beginning stages of Prop 36. So anyone who ever worked with Prop 36 treatment programs knows that it evolved over the years. But in the very, very beginning, it was kind of scary. And so I have all these people that literally were just out of prison, not jail, prison. And they were being kind of rude and disrespectful. And I was, at that time, I was also a director of a drug and alcohol treatment program. And so I had to go in as the director and talk to these clients, and let them know that, we need you to be more respectful. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to participate, blah, blah, blah. So I came up with this whole list of things, and I was very professional, and I was outlining all the things that weren't appropriate and talking to them about, just abiding by rules and this and that. And they literally, when I was done, were looking at me so confused, eyes, eyebrows scrunched, and they were just like, what? And somebody said, what are you talking about? We don't even know what you're talking about. And I realized, okay, so this professional therapist thing that I'm doing is not working for this group. And I literally put the paper down and I said, don't F with me or my crew. And they went, oh, you should have just said that. They literally, oh, you should have just said that. So it's so interesting because, we are light and we are shadow. We have all of these different parts, and not all of it is prim and proper. And, it is a mixed bag, and bringing it all together and merging it and integrating it. And I think as empaths, learning to let ourselves be the whole picture, merging it, integrating it unapologetically. And of course you can sift out the parts. I'm not going to go around using the F-bomb in all my work, but like in that particular setting, that was their language. And with just saying that, they got it. And it was unbelievable how they towed the line after that and were very respectful because I came down to their level and aligned with their language. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking about something else too that I wanted to share, from the clinical perspective of working with this population. Something that I learned is about honestly talking about the ways that we are imperfect, the decisions that we've made that were not in our best interest, because this population particularly, they obviously have made some choices in their life that have gotten their freedoms taken from them. And even though I go in as an advocate, as an educator, and I definitely want to advocate for them, and I want them to be treated differently, I never take away that accountability part, and I think that they respect that I can come in there and say, hey, like, I'm not perfect either. Like, these are some of the mistakes that I've made that could have brought me in here, And so I don't come in here judging you for what your life looked like. That's not my space. And I think that's important too, because as therapists, maybe in other settings, we're always like dealing with that question of, what do we disclose with our clients, and is it in the best interest to disclose those things? And maybe in another setting, you don't disclose so much, but yeah, like that helped me to understand how to gauge self-disclosure with the people that I'm working with, and really how to model that my life's not perfect, because so many times people have this idea about us, like, you're a therapist, you don't get anxious, you don't have depression. It's like, honey, you should have seen me like 4 days ago. I was really struggling,
So on that note, how do you encourage clients to work through guilt and shame and stay grounded in the process of, letting go of what no longer serves?
I think, honoring the self, I remember when I first started therapy, I was so negative about everything, and the negative self-talk would run rampant. And I remember that in the initial stages, my therapist was working on like helping me become aware of my negativity. And the way she would do it is she would tell me, like, stop. She would literally interrupt me when I was being negative. And in the beginning, I was like, this is so freaking annoying that she does that, And then she started to tell me, hey, when you're thinking about those things, when you're hearing those negative thoughts in your mind, like, tell yourself, cancel. I don't even care where you're at. And I started doing it. And then, like at the beginning, it was like, wow, like that awareness was great for me, because it was like, no wonder I feel terrible. No wonder I have this guilt and shame about these things that I had done so many years ago. This is not the person who I am, or this is not, ruminating on these ideas and these thoughts and these experiences does not serve me today. And it helped me, again, what we do as therapists is we model. It helped me stop being that way, and there's so many different ways. I think that is definitely one, because it worked for me. Like, I use that with the people that I work with, like helping them come to awareness about how whatever it is that is causing them guilt and shame, they need to become aware of the fact that that is the root of those feelings. Mm-hmm. And I say to my clients, look, there's so many things in life that will cause you suffering and you won't be able to control. So the things that you can control to not cause yourself suffering, please do. Mm-hmm. This is one of them. We can control the things that we think about. We can control the way that we see things, the way that we reflect on these things. And again, like I've shared how changing my perspective, how that was great for me in changing my life. That worked for me in overcoming guilt and shame. And again, everything isn't perfect. Certainly I still have times where, I go back to God, well, what about this? But now I'm able to recognize it and say, girl, come on, that doesn't serve you today. So, and that isn't who you are.
And a lot of us have a history or trauma from the past or choices or relationships, things that we've been a part of that it's not pleasant to think about or even talk about. And so staying grounded, part of that is using the breath, inhaling and breathing out, releasing whatever got lodged in the central nervous system and the cells and the blood and the bones, but also using positive affirmations, statements, declarations, mantras that align with who you are now and who you give yourself permission to be now and who you're allowing yourself to become now. So I love what you were saying about perspective. And yes, cancel all that no longer serves, release, shake it off, let it go, use breath to get it dislodged from the physical body as well as the energy field. And then really just grounding in the knowing that you are light, no matter what you've been through, no matter how much darkness you've been through and has been a part of your life. Darkness is just another shade of light. It's a very dense shade of light. And as you've come through it, now you're a lighter shade of light. And just giving ourselves permission to be that and embody that and embrace that, I know for me, helps me stay grounded, because I had a meltdown like several days ago. Yeah, with that Mercury retrograde, I don't know, but the bottom line is it happened, and that's just keeping it real, right? We're still in this human aspect of us, even though we are light and we are divine. There are moments that we all have, and I feel like that authenticity is important to share, but also recognizing that we don't have to stay stuck in the old, which is what, staying stuck in the past is what creates depression, and being too much in the future, too fixated on the future creates anxiety. So being in the present moment is, for me, a beautiful way of remaining grounded and accepting myself unapologetically, but also giving myself permission to be better moment to moment.
Yes. And, affirmations too. I love that you mentioned that. Like, they are so powerful. People don't realize like the power that just reading something, even if initially you don't believe it, find those things that you want to believe. I remember I would write on Post-its and put them on the mirror in my bathroom so that I could see it every day. And that transitioned into me writing on Post-its at my workstation. So I'm sitting there for 8 hours, working, and I would be glancing at these things or something very powerful that I heard on a TED Talk or that I read on a book for school. And it really like changed my life. And so the cool thing about, going into working with people, social emotional learning and all those things, we incorporate positive affirmations. We incorporate those things because they're so powerful and effective.
Beautiful. I'd like you to think about a positive affirmation that maybe you want to share with anyone who's listening, just a statement that might empower someone who needs to hear it.
We can do hard things. We can do hard things. I read this book by Glennon Doyle called Untamed. That book changed my life. My girlfriend from work at the time is the one that showed me. And I come back to that affirmation pretty frequently when I am having struggles in my own personal life, per se, because it's like, we come to these forks in the road and, transitions in life, and we got to make these huge decisions. And we always have that fear of, but what if it doesn't work out? Or, what if this, what if that? And I'm just like, this is not the worst thing that has ever happened to me. Even if it didn't work out, would not be the worst thing by far that has ever happened to me. Why? Because I've done hard things in my life.
Yeah.
So we can do hard things. That is a reminder for me, even in my professional space, I have, I don't value work. I value financial freedom. I value financial stability. And so, it's always like, a balance of, do I take this work, do it, and what is the purpose of it, but I think about those hard work weeks, like when I'm like, is it worth it? Am I doing the right thing? Like, yeah, we can do hard things. Like, everybody doesn't do this, and that's your power. That's your gift. If it were easy, everyone would.
So yeah, we can do hard things and I can do hard things, right? I love that saying, I eat problems for lunch. And I got through grad school, my roommate at the time and I got through grad school saying, we do it afraid. I do things afraid. So like, even it doesn't matter, fear's not going to stop me. I'm still doing it.
Honey, don't we all? Yes, we do so many things afraid. And the thing is that most of the people don't even know that we're afraid. Like, we know we're afraid, but everybody else is like, you were afraid when that happened? Right. Like, heck yes. Like, I was struggling big time, you know?
And so circling back to changing the narrative, I think that's a huge part of changing the patterns and cycles and the stories that we were born into, if they weren't unpleasant, is, you know, I get to speak what I want about my own life. And it's a process. And as I'm going through it, even if there's fear or apprehension or nervousness, or I've never done this before, so I'm not sure, because sometimes we are the first person in our family to get an advanced degree or to start your own business or to travel, you know, to different countries. Sometimes you're the first. And so it can be a little bit scary because nobody's modeled it for you. But being in that space of discomfort and choosing to affirm yourself every step of the way, remaining grounded, using the breath, believing in yourself, and creating a mantra and declarations that sort of pave the way for you to just moment by moment say, okay, still in the game, still keeping my head above water, I'm still breathing. So I guess I'm still doing it, you know, and just giving yourself permission. And that's how we recreate the narrative. That's how we write a new story for ourselves. It's moment by moment, second by second, breath by breath, and affirmation after affirmation after affirmation. All right. So what lights you up? What are you passionate about?
I have to say, my children and my work. It just is. Being a mother, to me, you talk about the mother wounds, right? When I was younger, I never thought that I would be in a space where somebody would say, you're such a great mother, you know, because in my ignorance at the time, I didn't think I had a great mother, you know, and so I didn't think that I would know how to be a great mother from anybody. And I wasn't a great mother at first, you know, but when I learned how to be better, honey, I was better. And now I feel like in this space of mothering, I have 3 children. 2 of them are adults now. And I have a 10-year-old. But so many times I hear people give me compliments about what a great mother I am. And I remember just a few years ago when somebody would compliment me that way, I would cry. Like, it makes me a little teary-eyed now just to even say it out loud. But that's how important specifically that compliment is to me, because I know how hard I worked to be a great mother, and I know I'm a great mother. And I think about, like, even in my professional spaces, I have a couple jobs, so I work with different people, and I'm like the work mom, even of people that are definitely not young enough to be my own children, you know. Everybody's like, you're the work mom, and I'm Miss Tonia to everybody, you know. So I think that definitely brings me so much light. And then when I talk about my work as a healer, my work as an empath, like, and that encompasses everything that I do professionally, whether I'm being a therapist, whether I'm being an educator, whether I'm being a consultant, like, that fulfills me so much. And that's how I know, like, that I'm in alignment in my life and that I'm actually, like, living out my purpose.
Love it. All right. Well, Miss Tonia, as we are winding down, I just have a couple more questions. I'm wondering if you think about the idea of recognition, the concept of honoring other people, how valuable do you think that is to be witnessed by another person? And what are some ways that we can do that more often of ourselves and others?
I think just It's important because we need to be, like I said in the beginning, we need to be given our flowers. We are almost always like our worst critic. And sometimes it's great to step out of that idea, which holds us back a lot, and accept our greatness. And so it's important to obviously go into spaces around people and identify those things and share it with those people, because that gives so much to us, you know. Again, just like I said, like the people, going back to that compliment of being a great mother, the people that have told me that probably did not realize how important saying those words to me was. And every time somebody said that to me and recognized that about me, it made me stronger. It made me have greater conviction about who I am as a person. And so many of us struggle with that, which causes mental health symptoms, which causes us to go into crisis in our life. And so that's why I think it's important to be able to recognize that about other people. But, you know, I always say, in order to do anything for other people, we have to be able to do for self. You know, is that like therapist rules 101? You know, I can't come in here with anybody that I'm working with and try to tell them, you know, well, this is what you need to do to manage your anxiety, but I don't do any of that, you know. I would be ineffective because it's not authentic. So, you know, finding those ways to recognize people authentically is important, but we need to be able to do that for ourselves first.
Absolutely. And then as empaths, part of the journey of an empath is giving yourself permission to be in environments that match your energy. So we empaths we naturally tend to serve others and give to others and encourage others and inspire others. That's sort of an organic aspect of who we are. So learning, as you said, to give it to ourselves, but also giving ourselves radical permission to be in environments in relationships with others that can match our energy and mirror back to us what we bring. So we bring it. And so having those that can bring it as well is just the most beautiful thing. I know yesterday I messaged a friend I haven't seen in a long time, and I was just saying, hey, you've been on my mind, and I just want you to know there's so many things about you I admire, and I miss you, and I look forward to us getting together again. Just wanted you to know I was thinking about you. And she sent this beautiful message back, which I wasn't expecting, but she basically said, I've always felt the same way about you. I love your energy. It's so enriching and it's so beautiful. And, you know, she matched my energy, even though I wasn't looking for that. She gave it. And that's because that's the kind of friends I have, you know. So empaths, take care of yourself by honoring the people that you allow to be in your space. That's a very important part of sacred self-honor and, you know, grounding yourself and protecting your energy.
Yeah, and understanding the importance of protecting my energy. I tell people, like, you know, my friendships, my relationships have evolved a whole lot over the last few years, especially as I've, you know, gone through the healing process for myself and come into this new space professionally as a therapist. And I always say, like, in the place that I'm at in my life right now, I can't have people around me, honey, that affect my energy in a negative way, because again, going back to whom much is given, much is required. I understand the gifts that I've been given. I understand my purpose in life and the work that I do. And I understand the responsibility that comes with it. And that I have to be able energetically to be well. And every day is not going to be perfect, but I have to be intentional with protecting my energy in order to do this important work. And I value my work. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't take it like, oh, well, you know, like, whatever. I could do other things. I can do a whole lot of other things, but I know what my purpose is. And we have to like protect our energetic space all the time. And honey, there are no exceptions. I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? Because if you come in my space and I feel away, I don't need you there. And I don't care who you are, how long we've had a relationship before today, you know, I'm not going to do it.
So now we're talking about cutting cords, dissolving cords, releasing what no longer serves. And there's a very gracious way to do that in honoring ourselves and honoring the other person. And they're not always going to understand, and that's okay. So yes, I'm so excited about this, this opportunity to just meet with you and interview you and hear your thoughts. Anything else you'd love to share with us?
I would love to share, just to close out, with a poem by Maya Angelou that I use a lot in my workspaces. So if you would be so kind to let me read it. It's called What I've Learned. So I've learned that no matter what happens or how bad it seems today, life does go on and it will be better tomorrow. I've learned that you can tell a lot about a person by the way he or she handles these three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas tree lights. I've learned that regardless of your relationship with your parents, you'll miss them when they're gone from your life. I've learned that making a living is not the same as making a life. I've learned that life sometimes gives you a second chance. I've learned that you shouldn't go through life with a catcher's mitt on both hands. You need to be able to throw something back. I've learned that whenever I decide something with an open heart, I usually make the right decision. I've learned that even when I have pains, I don't need to be one. I've learned that every day you should reach out and touch someone. People love a warm hug or just a friendly pat on the back. I've learned that I still have a lot to learn. Amen. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Thank you so much. I love Maya Angelou, and I really appreciate you closing us out with that beautiful poem.
Yes.
So lastly, how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in being mentored by you or just experiencing more of your energy?
The best way to do it is to follow me on Instagram at Be Real Blessed. So yeah, I look forward to connecting with so many people and seeing how we can work together in the future.
Thank you, Tonia. Miss Tonia.
Thank you so much.
Bye, empaths. Thanks for joining us.